As I should. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. My name's Bennett, and I'm a blacksmith. Today I'm going to be giving you a talk on, surprisingly, blacksmithing. So, real quick, there's a whole lot of information out there. There's a whole lot of things I could talk about. We have about an hour, so I'm going to have to give more of an overview and not give as much explanation as I'd like to. Real quick, what I do, I mostly make custom order work. Blacksmiths these days do pretty much anything people will pay for, architectural work, knives, sculpture. We just swap in some things. Pretty dragons with their wings that need to be attached. Cool things like that, as well as custom things like fancy Damascus steel knives, which is a layered patterned steel. So what I'll be making tonight is this bottle opener. Very fancy little thing, and the cool thing about it is it lets me show you some of the basic techniques that are absolutely key in blacksmithing: tapering, bending, and twisting. So let me show you exactly what we'll be doing. We're going to take this piece of steel. First, we're going to taper the ends out. And then we're going to make this piece, which I'm sure there's a name for, but I don't know. The part that grabs the bottle cap. Do some bending and then some twisting. Those are the steps. And we're going to walk through one by one. I'm going to try to give some explanation of what's actually happening, what I'm actually doing as I go. But before that, I want to get this heating up. Now this one I don't want to put in the fire. This is what is called my story stick. It has the measurements and the right spots for the bits of metal I need to pull out and change. So first thing I'm going to do is duplicate that real quick. Just take my hammer. Center punch here, and transfer the marks over. Now these marks will help me actually locate the right spots even when the metal's bright hot. Obviously these Sharpie marks would just vanish in the heat. But when it's glowing hot, the light of the glow kind of makes gets rid of all the shadows. So you kind of have to put them on the edges like this. So I'll be able to see the edge, but I might actually not be able to see the dot. Anyway, I'm going to throw that into the forge. There. Now, if you don't mind me moving the camera, I'm going to show you what that looks like real quick because it's really cool. Well, really hot. There we go. This is my homemade propane forge. A lot of my tools are homemade just because once you have one thing, you use it to make the next thing, and saves a little bit of money that way. A lot of modern blacksmithing is figuring out how to make the tools that don't really exist otherwise. Okay, so I have my basic tools here. Anvil, gift from my uncle. It was in the family, and once he saw how serious I was with all this, he passed it on to me. I was using just a small piece of railroad track before that. Tongs, hammer. I'm sure you've seen smithing. Seems straightforward. Tongs are important because it lets you hold the material without burning your hands. If you have a piece of material long enough to just use your hands, just use your hands. But tongs, hammer. In this case, I tend to use ones with a rounding face, which just means it's round. We'll get to that later. My punch, you've already seen. I'll also be using a rounded-ended punch. And this, which, let me get that on close, my touch mark. well, you can see that there, but there's a pattern on the end. Now, yeah, you can see that. Cool. And that'll be used just to mark the work as I mark all of my work. Jumping back to this piece, this is the first step we're doing. We want to be able to make these shapes here. So that brings in the first skill, the method of drawing out or stretching steel. That's most operations in blacksmithing. It's the taking of a big, heavy, big, thick thing and making it into a thinner, smaller thing. I know it doesn't sound very complicated, but it's where 90% of your effort as a smith tends to go. So we're going to be creating these tapers. Now you'll note there's two features here. The taper, it gets narrower to a point, and also the shoulder. That'll be created as sort of the second finishing step to clean up this nice little tapered piece. I was going to go into this long thing about why I'm going to do it, the way I'm going to do it, and I realized that without showing you, you'll have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start now. It's more than warm enough. Pull this out and get started. Okay. Pull it out and find those marks. I can see them, and I'm putting them right on the edge. Just set down like that, just making half on, half off the anvil. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees, still on those same marks. Set down, just like that. Which creates a sort of offset shape. That tells me everything past that I can taper down. Switching between two sides, start pointing the end. You don't have to do that first, but I find it helps myself. You'll note how quickly the steel is cooling. I'm going to need to throw it back in the fire as soon as it starts getting too cool. And honestly, that's probably about where I'll leave it. Really quickly, what we have there is just a slightly pointed, slightly bent piece of steel. Keeping it straight is important. I mean, unless it's supposed to bend. That's already going very differently than how I attempted to rehearse this, but it'll do. So, when you're tapering something, you have to think about how the metal moves. If you've ever played with Play-Doh, surprisingly, that's actually a very good analog for how hot metal moves. Seriously, get yourself a Maryland crab hammer and some Play-Doh modeling clay and a block of wood, and you can practice blacksmithing techniques at home. Some master smiths even use modeling clay to teach apprentices and people new to the craft. The steps doesn't quite hold up the same when you start getting thinner, but you'd be surprised just how much you can practice. So thinking of it like that, I take a piece, grab something for reference. Nothing in reach. There you are. Piece of steel like this. If I smack it like this, it'll take this square cross-section piece and turn it into a rectangle. Then if I turn it 90 degrees and do it again, we take it back to square, and again, it's a rectangle again. We're canceling out the sideways motion of the metal, leaving only the metal going that way. That is your basic traditional way of drawing out steel, creating a taper. I did a little bit of that to get the point you were just watching. It's also the slowest and most tedious way. So the step I'll be doing is using the edge of the anvil. You see this heavily rounded section here, and the edge of my hammer. And with those two together, I should be able to much more quickly pull out that steel. Should be ready, so if I can find, oh, there. Let's give it another go. So with it over the edge, finding where I set it down before, hit it, that's right. I'm rotating it every time and working towards the tip. it gets cooler, you may actually be able to see the metal getting hotter where I'm hitting it because of how much it's deforming and how quickly. See that? At least I can talk to work at the same time, totally. Yep. Woo! Now this can make it a little bit of a mess. Get some fancy awful stuff. As you're in the lower temperature, right before you put it back in the fire, give you a good time to put it on the flat of the anvil. This is on the face. The face of the anvil. And just hit it flat. Even though it's kind of not moving as easily, it will straighten it out, clean it up, smooth out those surfaces. Okay, back in the fire. Now I need to do two of these tapers. But in the interest of time, I'm going to do the one, and I have those other pieces you saw sort of partially complete. I can switch to the next step. As I said, 90% of your effort is drawing down steel. The camera I'm speaking to right now is resting on my hydraulic forging press, which I will use whenever I can to forge down steel, because it's the difference between arm strength for several hours and 5 minutes. On small stuff like this, though, it actually doesn't work that well because there's so much contact between the big heavy metal press and the work. It cools down very, very quickly. It does help, but not as much as you think. Hand hammering is still a very important part of modern blacksmithing. And it's almost warm enough already. I forgot that there was something else I was going to say there. Probably was. All right, use a little bit more, and then I'm going to show you the next step where we clean up those shoulders. It's getting close to where I'm going to want it. I don't want to overdo it. So now I'm going to take those same marks where I set it down before like this, and bring it to this side of the anvil, reestablish them, turn it 90 degrees, set it down again, and then lay this flat on the surface, striking just on the edge. I hope that comes through. You can probably see how that's making a pretty nice clean shoulder. Back in the spot. Straightening first. Good. The whole time you're working your steel at temperature, you'll be scaling, which means oxidizing, developing a thick black oxide on it. It's black ferric oxide, FeO3, I think, which is very hard. Technically, it's comparable in hardness to diamonds, but it's very thin and very brittle. Despite that, it can get pounded into the soft steel as you work, and that can lead to a very rough finish. So another important tool is a butcher block brush. These are heavy metal bristles, and you use this or any other wire metal brush to scrape off the scale as you go to keep the surface nice and clean. A heavy one like this, used properly and in good shape, which this one is a little well worn, will actually kind of burnish the surface, like scrape it smooth, which is very nice. So when I bring it out next, I'm going to hit it with the brush first, and then carry on completing that taper. In the meantime, should I toss that? No, the second piece will heat up fast enough. I don't need it anymore. Okay. Looking pretty good. So, I'll leave this here. Yes. Technical difficulty is very easily fixed. There we are. Yes, that camera turns off after 20 minutes. Nothing I can do about it. I've checked. So bring this out. And I can see it. I don't know if you can, but I can see the scale, little shadows on the surface being scraped off. That's good enough. So let's finish this shoulder up. Then I'm going to work further down, trying not to hit that nice clean shoulder. When I get too close to it, I can put it over the edge, keep it safe, and work like that. Pretty cold. Now, because of the way cameras work, you can't actually trust the colors the metal is appearing to be on your screens. White balance throws it off. Now let me see. It's still pretty cool. I should stop there. But I finished with the step. So, as a smith who's trying to make a living on this sort of thing, this is where I'll tend to keep something like this as a template. Without having to cool it down and so I can measure it, I can just hold it up next to it and say, yep, it's like the right length to me. So this is good. I'm going to heat this for just a second and do the final cleanup pass on this. Right now it has very sharp corners, which really aren't what you want in terms of something someone's going to hold. So I'm going to take that taper, put it across the face of the anvil, and take the square and turn it into technically a octagon cross section. I'm going to box the corners. As I hit the one on top, the one on bottom is also going to move. So as the hammer flattens the top, the anvil is flattening the bottom corner. I hope that makes sense. Doesn't need much to do it, so back to the other camera. I take it, put it across the face, and up, just like that. It doesn't always do the same amount, so it's still good to hit all four sides. But, yeah. I'm just good picking up a few little bumps. It's nice. At this point, I would likely yeah. I forgot to move over here my quench bucket. One moment. So, bucket of water. I had it right there, just not within arm's reach. With that done to that level, I'm going to quench this off. Yes, it just means stick it in the water. This is the mild steel, so you can cool it in water without cracking it. Mild refers to the amount of carbon in it. In this case, it's like a structural steel. It's just your plain, run-of-the-mill steel. It doesn't get hard enough to make it into a blade or anything like that. So now it's a little easier for me to show you what we've done. We created a taper, rounded the corners, and have a nice clean shoulder. And I can still see this is the inner center punch mark that guides where the twist will be later. Now, if I was finishing this, I would now do the same thing to the other side. Pull this out. Leaving me with this. I don't have time for that, so I'm just going to do the one and skip to this one. You'll note, looking at this one, this goes to one corner. On the other one, I went to the opposite corner. And the reason is because, well, it looks nice. So, heat this run right back up. Tell you about the next thing we'll be doing. This is where I'm going to form the cap lid. The parts that grabs the bottle cap. I'm sure there's a name for it. There's a name for everything. Now the problem here is I have tongs, the hammer, and the punch. I don't have three hands. So we use this. There's a lot of very inventive ways people have come up to deal with this solution. One way, very common, will see smiths do is they will take their work in their tongs, like so. They will place it between their thighs very carefully and pinch. I'm not going to do that today for two reasons. One, I'm holding this on the diagonal, you can see, corner to corner, which is very strong. But if I hold it this way, it doesn't have the right side up. I need it to be flat. And the other reason is because I am on live video, and sometimes that doesn't go well. Instead, I just tried this giant sheet. I'm going to be taking the workpiece out, placing it on the handle like this, and simply draping this rather heavy chain over it. And it turns out I have a few things on my handle attached to very powerful magnets, and that actually kind of holds the chain, but it doesn't actually matter. It's just enough to stop it from jumping away from me. Let's see, how are we framed on the other camera? I'm going to reset this just in case it tries to turn off while I'm doing something interesting. There we go. So if I put it right there, we ought to be able to see it. My assistant says that's much better. Thank you, assistant. So it is nicely heated. We're going to take the longer side, the longer the two tapers. That's where it goes. Right on the end like that. How's that look? Look good? That's great. Take our round-ended punch, place it right there. Try and do this in a single heat. Carving out a depression in the steel, and we'll push the one taper to the side. It sort of slides down along the surface, starting out as a relatively thick piece. But the thinner I get it, the easier it becomes. I'm taking a punch off every time to make sure I'm locating it correctly. Otherwise, you can do something real bad real easy. Sometimes the force of striking will cause the punch to jump to a new location. Now, with this particular punch, in this particular task, that's not very likely, but it has that. You take the punch off, you look, you reset, you hit. And that's just about there. Give us a few more taps. Taps. Ah. There. I think it'll do just fine. That, yeah. There you go. Now on the other side, we're going to do the touch mark. So I'm going to turn it around, keep that end, and do roughly the same procedure. However, this time, I'm going to go grab one of my thick leather gloves. I do not usually wear gloves while forging. You might think that is a safety risk. Well, yes and no. Yes, if something were to directly contact my hands, I would much prefer that I had been wearing a leather glove. But that is actually very rarely something that happens. You are much more likely to take something to the face or arm. Ask me how I know. Generally, the problem with gloves is to have the dexterity needed, to have the control over the hammer and the tongs. The gloves just don't allow it. They really don't. And most thin, nice form-fitting gloves, they're made out of materials that will melt to my skin if they catch on fire. So I go barehanded most of the time. Forge welding and certain tasks that are so hot I can't actually approach the forge without them, I wear gloves. But I'm going to be holding my touch mark. My touch mark in this hand, directly above the work. You can hold punches with tongs, but it doesn't allow you to feel how the end of the punch is resting on the material. We should be good and hot enough, so I'm switching cameras again. I hope this is all interesting for everybody. I have no idea what time it is, how I'm doing. Time is it? 6:30? Oh, great, we're doing great. Once again, chains over top. Line this right in that last half inch. That's a pretty good strike. Let me do it one more time though. If I can reline that up just so. Yeah, nice and solid. Unfortunately, that's a little hard to see, but at the end when it's all cooled off, you'll probably be able to make it out much better. So just pop the strike back in and explain the next step. So, our next step is this piece. You'll note we have, I guess I already moved on to the step, but we did this piece. Now the ends are curled over. We do that for things like this. Well, because it looks nice, but also to stop there from being a pointy end that just sticks and grabs. So you have to bend the small end on the very end the wrong way. That is to say, the opposite from the direction we're going to bend this. I don't know how else to explain that. It seemed a little silly, but it is important, and it does look nice. Now, there's a bunch of ways to do this sort of work, especially on something this small. So I'm going to show you at least 2 of them. If we have time, maybe the third way that I actually do it. Curl the tip. I'm just going to put it right just barely over the edge and tap, just like that. So I get sort of a C shape on the end. And turn it around, hammering towards me, just catching that end, and then turning this up like this. So it just pulls that around into a nice little loop. That's a really good one. Very pleased with that. Now I have a little heat left, so I'm now going to take this like this. And that taper 90 degrees. Just like that, now more or less. You have to start bending it that way before bringing it back around. Fire. And reheat. Don't need this anymore. Okay. Woo. I'm glad I pre-prepared extra ones. Usually I make a full one of these in 15 minutes, 5-0, unless I do one of the fancy twists. Fortunately, we do not have time to show you the fancy twists, but suffice to say, they're very fancy. I think I might have an example of one, and I will look for it, not right now.
Okay. Do you think you're going to be able to finish the one that you're working on now, Bennett?
Oh yes, definitely. No question.
Okay. Okay.
We're good.
All right.
So pulling this out. Oh, yeah, right. Switching the camera. Okay, I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to use the horn of the anvil, which is the big pointy bit on the end, to bend this around now. So, having said that, the camera so you can actually see it. Yeah, that's good. Now, I always just fill in time there. Now, I'm going to quench that, just the tip, so it doesn't mess up that nice little loop. Work it around. We'll unbend that 90 degrees a little bit. Okay, that gives us a shape like this. And from there, I can work it further on the board here, get it close to where I want it. The horn allows for multiple different diameters. So it is conical, and that can prove an issue sometimes. You see here, I've taken this too far, but this is on purpose, because I'm going to bend this end part. There we go. Back around. And I don't know how to tell you that. I'll just show you. Back in the fire. Cool. Where is that jig? There it is. Now, when I'm making a dozen of these, I don't hand shape every single loop if I can avoid it. I take a small piece of metal like this, whatever scrap I have lying around, get something with the right radius, a peg to hook it onto, and you set it up so that you can hook the loop in there and pull it around. It's very quick. But it also doesn't always work. You need to know how to work with the horn and the rest of the anvil to make the shapes you want, or you can't fix it when it goes wrong. Things always go wrong. Oh, you know what I mean. I'm readjusting this again now because I'm going to show you the second technique. I need to be a little bit further out. Still good? That's great. There they are. Oh, of course. That's these guys. These are round-nosed, needle-nose pliers. This, I don't need necessarily use a hammer. I can just reach right in there and grab it. Bring that bend around. Now that I've corrected the overbend, I take a small hammer, work that curve around, bringing this back in, curling that tip a little bit more, making sure it's at a bit of an upward angle so that the beer bottle or the bottle will fit underneath. Once this is done, it will probably take a little bit of tweaking to make sure it opens smoothly. That's the one end B. Quickly do the same thing the other side, except it's not going to be a question mark shape, it's just going to be a full loop. It's very quick. I suppose I could do that in a jig, but I don't want to move the camera all the way over there if I don't have to. Oh, all right, we're almost there to the final coolest part. Yeah. Talking and working at the same time is quite difficult.
Do you need to take a minute?
No.
Okay.
I need is my bottle of water.
Okay.
Assistant, would you please hand me that bottle of water? No, that one. Yes. Thank you. Ah. Much better. Okay. Switching cameras. It's a little bit more difficult to hold with that one side already made. So kind of careful there. You keep using the little one, it doesn't matter. Make the little loop over. And it's 90. I suspect I have enough heat. Just go right in. Bring that around. So bring it in. Both enough heat and the metal. It's thin enough, that's almost there. So we kick it in like that. It's not quite centered. I'd say that looks pretty nice. Okay, so with that, we are down to the final step. And for that final step, I need this to be nice and straight. So I'm going to tap this a few times to take out any warps in the metal. Actually, just the once. There we are. And get the whole thing to nice even heat. Now we will be moving the camera again, because I'm going to show you the twist. The twist is my most favorite part. I have a secondary piece here ready to help us set up, but let me move the camera first. Okay. There we are. Out. That looks good. Great, great, good. So here's the demonstration piece. Coming in. Oh, where is my twisting wrench? I have misplaced my twisting wrench. Well, that's okay. Won't be as clean, but this is just a demonstration piece anyway. Take it into the vise like that. And and twist. Now you can see it's sort of twisting off center there because I don't have the right wrench, but it also, you can see that it looks really neat. So that's roughly what we're about to do on that other piece. Very cool. Now, I just spotted it. I knew it had to be over there. I quenched that piece of metal off very quickly because I don't want to leave a hot piece of metal somewhere I didn't know it was. Here we are. This is my twisting wrench. You see it's an adjustable wrench with an extra handle. I have it ready to just lock it right on as soon as the thing goes in the vise. While it's hot as possible. Really? There we go. Stay. Okay. Hot. Oh. I'm having a really good time. I hope you all are too. So, into the vise. Just the right amount. Just a touch mark, lock it down. Here we go. Just like that. Now then, my wooden mallet is far away. You can use a wooden mallet to carefully straighten twists without damaging the nice high points. If there's any bend to them. I like to have a little bit of bend in these. I feel they fit in the hand a little better that way. That's probably enough. There you have it. One fancy looking bottle of